Sorry, yes, we are live.
Great. Okay, we're going to initiate the recording. I'm going to open the waiting room. At exactly 7 o'clock, we got this down to a science. There we go. All right, Stephen Berkson, you have the floor.
Thank you. And the April 1st, 2024 board meeting of the Oregon Country Fair will come to order. And we'll remind everyone, if you're not a board member, officer, staff member, please turn your video off unless you're speaking. And we will go to announcements. And I am not seeing chat. There we go. We'll go to announcements. Jeff, can you? Yep, thank you. And AJ, is that a hand for announcements?
Yes.
Yep. Go ahead.
I've got two things. One is, can you ring that bell any harder than what you just did? Number two is, this is just a pre-message that says everything that we do tonight is real. This is not an April Fool's joke.
Thank you. Sue.
Saturday market starts this Saturday, folks.
Thank you, Sue. Norma.
Spring Fling is May 4th at the Wow Hall. Music by Marty Chilla and a side of beats. And we'll have our raffle as usual. So if you have something that you would like to donate to put in our raffle baskets, please contact me at norma@OregonCountryFair.org. Raffle tickets will go on sale pretty soon, so you can buy them online. And it's going to be really fun and really exciting, and may the 4th be with you.
Thank you, Norma. Sandra.
Yes, I just wanted to let people know that the Personnel Policies Committee is doing a call out for new members, and the call out will be printed in the Fair Family News and be posted on the .net site. So if you're interested, take a look and send us in your information. Thank you.
Thank you. Arna.
I wanted to say that the board has received committees' annual reports, and I really want to thank all the committees that have submitted them. The board will be going over them, and you didn't just send them into a black hole. I want to just reassure you that we will be looking at them all, and thank you very much for the committees who have turned those in.
Thank you very much. I do not see any other announcements. Last call for announcements. Put your hand up in chat if you have an announcement. Again, last call for announcements. Seeing none, we'll move on to minutes approval. Is there any objection to approving the March 4th minutes as submitted? If anyone has any objection to approving the March 4th minutes as submitted, please raise your hand in chat. Any last call? Hearing none, the March 4th minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Agenda review. Is there any items for agenda review? John Steiner.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I am withdrawing the EDIB task force motion that was going to be old business tonight. I'm doing that because after the meeting last month, got a lot of feedback. We kind of edited the motion fairly heavily. And since it's not a time critical emergency, I think the appropriate thing to do is to withdraw it, and we'll be submitting a revised version as new business tonight, so that everybody has a chance to comment on this version. I did want to speak just a little bit more to it. One of the big sticky points for me was a number of people wanted to remove cultural appropriation from the list of task force tasks. And I really didn't want to do that because I kind of look at the story pole incident as where a lot of our stuff really started. But I was convinced that it's actually a pretty different thing than the rest of EDIB. And we've done some talking about having a separate task force to deal with cultural appropriation issues. And as long as it's dealt with, so we're not dropping something important to the family, that's fine with me. I also just want to remind the members that we put our motions up way in advance now. They're up more than a month in advance. They're up on the FAIR website. We can't call everybody and tell everybody, hey, there's something coming up. So make it a habit of looking at stuff. It works way better for us if you email us feedback, because then we have time to consider it and come up with better responses, because as you've probably seen, amending motions on the fly in the middle of the board meeting doesn't work very well. So get your comments in early and often. Thanks.
Is there any objection to the motion being withdrawn from the agenda? Last call from any objection from a board member to the motion being withdrawn. Seeing none, so ordered. Any other agenda review? Is there any other agenda review, discussion, or items? Hearing none, we'll move on to membership comments. This is for items not on the agenda. Are there any members who wish to make comment on things not currently on the agenda? If so, raise your hand in chat, please. Any members who wish to make any comments on items not on the agenda for tonight, please raise your hand in chat. Last call. Seeing none, we're going to move on to staff reports, the executive director's report.
Thank you, Stephen, and good evening, everybody, and thank you for your time this evening. I'll get started with administration. Per the board motion to release committee meeting recordings, here are the details on accessing them. All open meetings will be placed on the .net site starting April 4th. So any meeting from April 4th forward will be accessible on the .net site. There will be a link on the committee and work group page to access the recordings. The link will take you to a Google Drive where they will be organized by committee. The .net site is not discoverable in a Google search. You must enter the entire address into the browser to get there. This gives some security that the committee recordings will not be able to be seen by those not affiliated with OCF. An update on the Amplified Sound Task Force. The application window ended yesterday, March 31st. We are currently reviewing the applicants and selecting members. The task force will be comprised of 10 to 15 members. The first meeting will occur sometime in late April 2024. And the 2024 Amplified Sound Permit application is on the .net site under General Info/Documents. Preparation for the 2023 tax filing is well underway. We are submitting for an extension as we do every year, and I expect to have the financial statements for review by the board in September. For event management, I have good news. Under our 2024 contracts, LTD has agreed to provide bus service in 2024. I am awaiting the contract, and they say service levels will be comparable to 2023. We are still working on the AT&T COW. Verizon, we met with them on March 27th to discuss logistics. And T-Mobile, we are still waiting for a meeting on logistics. We have selected United Site Services to provide porta potties for the 2024 event. They were selected because their quote demonstrated significant savings. Honey Buckets will continue to service our porta potties outside of the event on a monthly basis, which they have done for years, and we thank them for their years of service. We signed a contract with White Bird Rock Medicine for medical services. We no longer have a contract with White Bird Clinic for medical services. White Bird Rock Medicine is organizing as a 501c3 and will award grants to local nonprofits. I spoke with the executive director of the Whitebird Clinic, and they are aware of this change and are unable to provide service directly to us this year. For the 2024 permits, all Lane County permits have been submitted. The Farside Campground, Zen Acres Campground, Alice's Campground, Marshall's Campground, Dahinda Acre Campground, the Farside Outdoor Assembly permit, the right-of-way permit, and the building permit for the dance pavilion. So we're well ahead of the curve. We're currently working on the permit to replace the winery house that burned down. It is called a verification of replacement rights. So I will report back to the board once that permit is granted. The Spring Fling is set for Saturday, May 4th, 2024 from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Wow Hall, as Norma mentioned. The band is Marty Chilla and a Side of Beats. Raffle tickets are available on the site now. I may have missed that by a day, but they will be soon. And of course, this is a fundraiser for Culture Jam, and Jans Ingber will be our MC, who is the program director of Culture Jam. For the site, the EAB response, the fair received a donation of 360 alder saplings and 100 ponderosa pines. They were potted on Saturday, March 23rd, and are staged at Doug's Green. Thank you to the volunteers that participated: David Hoffman, Dave from Green Thumb, and Sean Bolton. A reminder of the guidelines on our invasive species and wood. I'm going to read this to you because it is important to be read into the record. Invasive species threaten our natural ecosystem and must never be brought on site. Clean camping gear, vehicles, and footwear before coming to the site to prevent spreading seeds of invasive plants. Non-native plants should not be introduced without permission of the site manager. To help prevent the invasion of the tree-killing beetle known as the emerald ash borer and other harmful insects, fungi, and blights, e.g. sudden oak death, ash wood is prohibited unless previously coordinated with and approved by the OCF site manager. Crafters or booth representatives who utilize wood or plants in their products should contact the site manager for discussion of environmental safety, protocols, and best practices. Firewood, plants, soils, wood chips, wooden booth construction materials, and decoration materials, excluding debarked, kiln-dried, professionally milled lumber, can be vectors for disease and invasive species. To obtain firewood for burning on site, please contact quartermaster or site employees. Additionally, in efforts to prevent the spread of pests and disease, no firewood is to be taken from the site. Individuals observed bringing firewood from off-site or removing firewood from the site are subject to confiscation of the firewood. With regard to invasive species and harmful fungi and blights, please inspect materials, products, clothing, shoes, and vehicles for potential invasive insects and seeds, and remove any potential vectors from relevant items before coming to the fair. Wooden pallets may also carry invasive species or be heavily treated with chemicals. Thereby, wood pallets are not to be brought to site for use in campgrounds or other personal uses or for firewood. Operations will continue the removal of wooden pallets brought to site via product delivery as they arrive. So please, we know that we have the potential for emerald ash borer, and all we can do right now is be proactive in the prevention of the introduction of invasive species on our site. Thank you. Compost slab, the first pour happened on 3/26/24, so March 26, 24, and the final pour happened today, April 1st. So the compost slab will be cured and ready for use in the next couple of weeks. Marketing 2024 tickets. 3-day tickets went on sale March 15th. I'm going to give you some specifics. We have sold 2,070 3-day tickets. We have sold, and tickets went on sale today for general admission. In one day, we've sold 711 on Friday, 709 on Saturday, and 204 on Sunday. So ticket sales are off to a great start. 3-day tickets will stay available on the site until they sell out, or we see they aren't selling much, and we'll move the inventory to the general admission tickets. As I said, general admission tickets went on sale today, and they will be on sale through June 15th. We will go to a regular price ticket on June 16th through the event. Tickets may be purchased at the Eugene office starting Monday, April 1st, and we sold our first tickets today in the office, so that's pretty cool. So opening day, we sold a ticket in the office. Tickets will be sold only on Mondays and Tuesdays of each week from noon to 4 p.m. and the last day to purchase a ticket through the Eugene office will be Tuesday, June 25th. Printing the guidelines, the 2024 digital copy is on the .NET site, and printed copies were received in the office last Friday. So we have our guidelines in-house. So if you'd like some, excuse me, come get them. Otherwise, we will bring them to the coordinator meeting, and they'll be available at QM once main camp opens. Vehicle stickers all due in-house by May 1st. Food vouchers are due in-house by April 15th. VIP passes are printed and done. Worker day passes are almost done, and they're currently being printed out of the Afton ticket system. Wristbands are all due in-house by April 15th. The .org site has a great new look. Big thanks to Lauren Jerome and Jocelyn Bloor for their excellent work on this. Be sure to check it out, and the .NET site will be updated after this year's fair. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kirsten and Hillary.
Yeah, thanks. This is the time of year where the next 4 months are going to determine what type of financial year that we have. For many years, we had a routine of pretty much counting on that we were making money and made our revenue projections. And the last 2 years with COVID happening, we haven't been able to do that. So if you tuned in while we were talking about the financial planning, you would know that we've, tried to adjust our estimates on revenue in order to meet that. And, also that we put aside a couple of capital projects that we didn't want to do yet. Maybe some we'll do afterwards. Kirsten and her staff are working very, very hard to manage the funds well and to make good decisions with the contracts. And coordinators also have a huge responsibility. Unlike many organizations, there is so much delegated responsibility for the financial spending in this organization. If you are a new coordinator and haven't spent fair money before, talk with Norma, talk with your staff liaison. You have a number of options, from having them help you access a credit card or a charge account. It has to be with permission. You have to be on an approved list or have somebody on your crew on an approved list. And Norma has a reimbursement process that she can tell you about. She can also give you up-to-date reports on your budget, and please monitor that and make sure that you're able to get your crew work done with the budget that you have. And if you are having difficulty doing that, talk to your crew, your staff liaison about what's going on as soon as you can, and they will do everything they can to help you. So thank you so much. Really looking forward to seeing more people in the coming months.
Thank you, Hillary. So now we're on to committee and work group reports. I understand we have a presentation report from Fair Cares, which is I should have mentioned during agenda review, it's being deferred until after the approval of logo items. Are there any other, there's a number of written reports that have been submitted. Are there any other matters of committee or work group reports that need to be expressed orally? Stephen. You're breaking up. We're not able to understand you. We're still not understanding you, Stephen. Okay, let's go to Arna, and Stephen, if you can fix your audio, we'll come back to you.
I may be able to help with what Stephen was trying to say. That's what we wanted to do was actually have a motion that we have received these committee reports and approved their minutes as a separate motion here. So I am going to move that the board has received all submitted committee reports and approved minutes listed in the agenda as read, meaning that we have all read these reports and minutes from the following committees. Craft Committee minutes from February 13th of this year, Fixed Assets Committee minutes from October of 23 and 11/13 of 23, Food Committee notes from January 23rd of 2024, and a path planning report. I
Second.
just need a second to that motion that we have, we're accepting these.
Second.
So this is to adopt these reports, I take it? Sorry, I had to
Yes.
step out because there was machine noise next to me. Okay, and it's moved by Arna and seconded by John Steinhardt. Is there any objection to accepting these reports as submitted?
Stephen,
Yeah,
oh, I will have to abstain. I've been on vacation, so I wasn't able to read all of them.
okay. And I assume there's no, is there any discussion? I assume there's no discussion on the reports? Hearing no discussion and hearing no objection, the motion passes with one abstention. AJ? And we'll move on to old business. Approval of the logo items, Sue Theolis and Arna Shaw.
Sue,
Sue?
you want to take this? Is Sue here?
She was here. Did we lose her?
Back. My internet is very wonky today. So what did I miss?
Logo items, the motion. Do you want to make the motion?
Yes, hang on one moment. I've got to access something. Board moves to approve logo items for the 2024 fair.
Is there a
I'll second.
Moved by Sue and seconded by Arna. Is there any member input on the logo items? Again, is there any member input on the logo items? If there is, raise your hand in chat, please. Last call for member input on logo items. Hearing none, is there any board discussion on logo items?
Stephen,
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that board members have looked at all of these items because we are the ones entrusted with the logo.
Well, we're deliberating. I don't have a way to ensure that they have looked at them, but your concern is duly noted. Does anyone have any further discussion on the logo items? Sandra?
Well, I've certainly looked at them, and I think there's an interesting mix, and it all looks good, and it'd be a good addition at this year's fair. Thank you.
I'm doing the hand since I'm
Yeah.
on my phone. I just wanted to say how thrilling it is to get to see it first on this little board thing. So, woohoo! A plus for doing this work. Anyway, I thought they were great. I'm very excited about them.
Thank you very much. Paxton?
I also looked at them, and I really like our tradition of going through this way and getting a chance to see new ideas that and old ideas that come up at the fair. Thank you.
Sue?
I want to thank all of the juried crafters who submitted the items, and I want to give a huge thanks to Craft Inventory and Jeff Harrison for shepherding the process and bringing it to us.
Thank you very much. Is there any other board comments on the logo items? Last call? No one has spoken against. Is there any objection to approving this motion? Last call. Is there any objection to approving this motion? The 2024 logo items are approved by unanimous consent. And we'll move on to the Fair Cares support policy, and we're going to take a report presentation from Fair Cares first, and that will be presented by Robbie.
I'm actually going to start.
Oh, okay.
Hi, my name's Lily. I am a member of the Fair Care Work Group. It's our first executive director managed work group. We were started in about 2019 by one of our former executive directors. The work group's task was to take on many of the issues that arise in a community that's been working our issues out for 50 years, be they our grievance procedure, behavioral standards, the ways we treat each other. We had a long list of community issues that we decided to take on, and reviving and revising the grievance procedure was our first task. So in 2021, we brought out a new grievance procedure after an extensive campaign that solicited feedback from FAIR participants, the membership, the board, BUMS, and individual legal expertise, including, in addition to the legal review, DEI experts, HR experts, and more. We tried something new based on the recommendation from the former grievance administrator and mediators involved in the former process, and we tried to adopt a restorative justice model. When the process was applied to our community, it quickly became apparent that it was too proscribed, and we didn't have enough flexibility to address each situation that came in front of us with appropriate circumstances. After another extensive process drafting a new program in response to the board's 2022 motion directing Kirsten to create a progressive solutions policy, we solicited feedback from FAIR participants, the BUMS, the board, and individual experts, and presented a combination policy and procedure in 2023. We thought it would give us the flexibility needed to address each situation appropriately and provide more detail than usually is in a policy. But during the vote in 2023 at the board meeting, we found that the feedback we received was that there were too many options, and the policy and procedure as we outlined it was difficult to follow. In response, you'll see today that we've streamlined the 2023 poly procedure, is what we're calling it, into a true policy, and that's what's before you tonight. We've taken all of the feedback we've solicited over the last 3.5 years. We've reached back out to our individual experts, engaged with the board to ensure it was less confusing, and received a legal review. And we've done more work to make it match what we believe our community standards are. So we'd like now to have the opportunity to discuss a few of the differences between what we presented in 2023 and the work we've done up till now, so that you can see that this policy is what we believe is the best fit for our community. And we can review some more of the extensive work we did to engage interested parties and prepare for implementation of this policy and the procedure that Fair Care has developed, so that we're prepared for the 2024 fair and beyond. Robbie, do you want to advance slides?
It's trying.
And
Okay,
then
here we
take
go.
the next part?
Yep. Okay. Alrighty. So over the last just couple of days, we've been asked a couple of times essentially why a policy and not a procedure, because procedures is what we've typically had. There's a lot of reasons for that. One of those is that our board is a governance board. A policy is what is most appropriate to bring forward for a vote. Procedure has been attempted several times and it's failed, as it was way too strict. It didn't serve the needs of the conflicts that arose. We presented what I lovingly call a poly procedure in 2023, and that was voted down. The feedback we received is that it was, quote, very complicated and couldn't be understood. We will still use that poly procedure as the beginnings of our internal procedure document. But what we're bringing forward today is similar concepts and behavior intervention philosophy as was presented in 2023, but condensed down so it isn't as confusing. Also, presenting a pure policy rather than a procedure means that we can internally adjust as new case law, mediation interventions, like new and exciting mediation interventions that that come up or otherwise are introduced, rather than having to wait to come before the board every time there's something new and exciting. So what are some of the larger changes? Instead of having a really prescribed path and really few ways to resolve a conflict, we can avail ourselves of the latest interventions from our various resources. We'll assign the right intervention or step in the process most appropriate to the individual situation, instead of a one intervention fits all style process. We'll have standardized templates of the certain documents and a central filing system so we can store and track. The process will be streamlined, resolving issues and putting into place guardrails or protections in a much timelier manner than was previously available to us. On to you, Lily. You're muted, Lily.
Thanks. You'd think by now, 4 years on, I'd know how to unmute. So we also wanted to discuss what is staying the same from what we presented in, I think it was October of 2023. This is our opportunity to standardize what's already happening. A vote for this policy is a vote for future FAIR, where we have a bank of past practices we can review, which will have amazing benefits, including equitable outcomes, the ability to review patterns, because we're going to do a more comprehensive data collection so that we can better protect the community, and the ability to review for training opportunities for the folks, the sort of personnel involved in this process, and policy procedure development that we can always bring back to the board, systemic interventions, and much more. One of the things that is staying the same, but has actually improved while staying the same, is that the mediation crew and the CEDAR mediation team have merged into one large, comprehensive, and cohesive mediation resource for the FAIR. And is Lou here? Lou, I'd like you to talk for a moment about the merged crews and what mediation can offer to the FAIR.
Yeah, thank you, Lily. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, so the discussion came up, almost immediately after I started as the coordinator for CEDAR team. We were a service team at the time, and we started some discussions with Lily and Nick, the coordinators of the mediation crew at that time, and about what it might look like should we merge the two teams together. And we've, over the course of the last couple of years, worked out some logistics on that. And we all just feel like that it's going to make a lot more sense for our community if the mediation is all centrally located and we're all on the same crew. A couple of things that we're excited about is the opportunity to share information together, and also share some of the trainings that that the CEDAR team has done in the past with the mediation team as well. And but our role is still largely staying the same. The CEDAR team is still in place, and we have our list of team members, or now crew members, that are certified mediators in the state of Oregon that have all passed the 40-hour basic mediation training. And that's something we're going to continue to ask of our crew members that are doing active mediations with the Oregon Country Fair community. And hopefully we'll also start to get some of the other mediators from the mediation crew, Nick's side of the mediation crew, on board with that as well, so we can all kind of be more intertwined, all working together as we move forward. And yeah, Nick and I have had a lot of discussions about it. We're very excited about this change. Lily and I have talked a lot about it. She's also very excited about this change from what I've heard from her. So excited to see how this slight change, but the same, is going to play out this year at the Oregon Country Fair and beyond, for sure. And we're here to, our team is ready and poised to help out. Should the policy be voted on and accepted here, we're ready and poised to help out in any way we can to make sure that there's support needed as we move forward and find the people to fill the positions that we need to. Anything you want to add to that, Lily?
No, that was great. Thanks, Lou. So this policy will cover the things that already have been covered by former iterations of the grievance procedure and by other parts of the management team and leadership of the fair. The code of conduct, which was adopted by this board recently. Every listed policy, guideline, and behavior should be addressed by operational interventions. We haven't made a change to that. That was already part of the fair ethos. We're just streamlining, standardizing, and we hope creating a more equitable, approachable conflict resolution and behavioral adaptation process that all of the folks who are affiliated with the fair can go through. Robbie?
So what checks and balances will exist? This is just what I could fit on this slide. This is what we thought was most important. Both the individual reporting and the person responding are going to have an opportunity to provide their perspective. We'll develop a body of individuals who we can call upon to decide upon conflicts. We'll train each individual and provide lots of support, like a mentor if they're newer to it, administrative support, an equity review, just so much support that we have planned for those individuals. Not at every single level, but at more serious levels of an intervention with an individual, that individual will be able to request a review, both for process and a decision. We'll also develop a body of individuals who can gather information in relation to the conflict. They will also receive training and mentorship. We're going to keep, just like the grievance procedure right now, for this process, we'll keep our working definitions document up to date as humanly possible and up on the .NET site. It's already fairly extensive, and if voted on, we plan to extend it quite a bit. I think a lot of questions will be answered by reviewing those definitions, and we really encourage everyone to review and send in suggestions for other definitions that would be helpful after we publish our, latest version. We would really welcome your suggestions there. It will help everybody. Thank you. We also continue to ask for feedback and we regularly review it. I hope that we can be trusted at this point that we will do that. We've been doing that for 3.5 years. We have set a time frame. We're going to at least review our feedback for the whole process by the end of 2025. If not sooner. If we start just like our first procedure, if we start to see major problems with it in the very beginning, we will start our feedback process and revision process immediately. But if we aren't seeing those major concerns, then we will at least gather that feedback by the end of 2025. So I won't read the implementation list to you. This is sort of our basic plan. If the policy is passed, let us know if you're interested in any of these positions, of course, or if you know anyone you think would be really great. And I'll leave this up for a couple of seconds and I'll flip to the next screen to show you our email address and we will open it for questions.
So Stephen, if it's okay with you, because each of us on the committee has different areas of expertise, as the questions come in, we've decided that I'm going to kind of say, hey, Lou, I think this is a good one for you to answer. Robbie, how about you here? Is that okay with you? Just to make sure.
Let's, can we clear the screen share? And this is a little, adjustment of process. So I just want to shepherd us along here. So let's take, you want to take questions from membership?
If that is the procedure you'd like to follow, is that what we usually do?
Well, I think.
We need a motion.
What?
We need a motion.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Well, if this is their report, can we take their feedback on it and then do the motion or not? I mean, member limits should still be the same. But this is the committee answering questions.
I think the committee can answer the questions when we go to member input and board input.
Okay,
So now
let's
we're to
start.
the board motion. and then we open it up to feedback.
Okay. So who's making the motion?
I'll make it.
Who was that?
John Steiner.
Okay. And who's seconding?
Second, Tom.
Okay. Is there any member input on this motion? Any member input, raise your hand in chat if you want to ask questions or raise input on this motion. Adam. A timer.
Yes, thank you for bringing all this information. My first question is, in terms of the leaders, you had said that the dealing with issues, behavioral issues, would be still based in operational functioning, and so I assume, I'm the craft inventory coordinator. We have a craft situation where there's a problem. Would someone from craft inventory still be the leader then? And is this training going to be provided to folks throughout the organization who do deal with behavioral issues on a regular basis in relation to the guidelines?
Robbie, do you want to take that one, or would you like me to?
I can take it. Part of that one I'm a little bit confused on, but I'm going to answer what I think you're asking me. So first, yes, we will be providing training to coordinators, of course. So what we're imagining is somebody will report this to our email or a form, and then we will decide who the appropriate leader is based on the kind of conflict it is and also where that exists. So if this is like an attendance conflict, I could see that staying with the coordinator, but not all the time. Does that make sense? Because sometimes you're going to have a conflict that is best done by an individual who has lots of experience with that kind of conflict.
Okay. Are you satisfied with that, Adam? I'd like to move on.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Pincus. Jonathan? If you're talking, we're not hearing you. We're going to go on to LT.
Yeah, hi. There's a lot of questions, but I want to limit myself to one for the moment. The section of the motion that lists among the possible areas for covered by the policy is violation of OCF policies, federal case law, or state law. I presume they meant to include local ordinances, county, whatever. And I understand what a violation of a OCF policy or a federal or state law would look like. I deal with that all the time. But what I don't understand, I've been puzzling over this, is what in the world is a violation of case law?
Robbie?
Without getting too far into with trying to keep it 100,000-foot view, there's a lot of law out there that is case law, as you know, LT, that we still have to follow. For example, well, the easiest one to reference is confidentiality laws. Not that it really applies in most of our scenarios here, but that's an easy one to refer to. So that's what we're talking about. Hate speech is also case law. Roe v. Wade was case law. There's many. I'm sure you know, LT. There's lots of case law that we have to follow. That's what we're referring to there.
Okay, Jonathan Pincus, try and unmute yourself again if you can. And if not, you might have to try and leave and come back, and we'll let you speak if you have to do that. But there should be no other people are unmuting themselves. So there should be no block from you unmuting. So, is there any other members who wish to speak to the motion? Either speak or ask questions. Any other members in the audience want to speak or ask questions regarding the motion? Did John leave and come back? Give him a second. Last call for any other anyone else? Lawrence Taylor, assuming he has time left.
I hope so. Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate the answer, and maybe this can get cleaned up. But case law does not control the behavior of individuals. Roe v. Wade, for example, controlled the activities of state legislatures and required them to comport with what was then the understanding of the Supreme Court regarding constitutional rights. Statutes control individual behavior. Confidentiality is a creature of the fiduciary duties of board members of nonprofits, which is also a creature of statute. I genuinely puzzle over this, and with all due respect, I do not think individuals can violate case law. So for whatever that's worth, there it is.
Thanks for that feedback, LT.
Thank you. John?
Oh, wait, Robbie's got something on this one.
I just 2 seconds. Apologies. I just want to let you know, LT, that this survived our lawyer reviewing it. So maybe you and I can talk a little bit later. I just want to make sure that we're good, but we do have a legal review on this.
Okay, John Pincus, I saw you unmute. Are you able to talk to us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
All right. Well, my LT's concern was my concern as well. And maybe you should reconfer with the attorney on this, because my understanding of case law is that case law is not law. It is the history of judgments about statutes or federal law or whatever jurisdiction it comes into. If it's a municipality, it'd be ordinances, I suppose. But legislatures or governance bodies make laws. Case law is what judges' opinions were in the history of the adjudication of those laws. That's my understanding of what that is. You can't violate case law. And what the latest interpretation by a judge can change at any time. In any case, I think it's a pretty high demand to expect the fair family in general to understand or even know anything about case law. So you're asking people to be compliant with things that are, for most people, would be completely out of their consciousness and realm entirely. So it seems rather strange to me. The other thing I'm concerned about is that you're asking people to, or you're requiring people to comply with all federal statutes. Now, I encourage everybody to think about that. There's differences between Oregon statutes and federal law on some rather important things, particularly to our particular group of people, but I think to many Oregonians in general. So do you really want to, for instance, sanction people who may be violating every federal law? Just give that some thought, please. And remember the kind of organization we are. Think about that. So those were really my concerns. My other concern is that I'm really glad that the policy has been created and the group of people are ready to pick up the work. The motion itself, however, does not indicate
need to wrap
who's
up,
picking up the work. So that was my point. The motion doesn't specify who's picking it up.
Okay.
So thanks.
Thank you, John. I'm going to go to John Govsky, Adam, because he hasn't spoken yet. John.
Thank you. I just want to mention that I'm not really sure what the big to-do is about case law. It is just law as a result of judicial rulings, and that's law. I mean, you can't say you're going to follow legislative statute and not case law. You can't make a distinction. It's all the law. Roe versus Wade is case law. I mean, it's all the law. So there's no distinction. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And back to Adam.
Just wanted to circle back briefly to my question previously. I guess to be clearer about it, within the roles that a coordinator might have, such as in my case, I might be dealing with violations of the guidelines, and the work that I'm doing is based on progressive discipline and may end up removing someone from the event. I guess I wonder, how will things be routed and reviewed for who the responsible person reviewing those situations is? Will there be a filter essentially before things go back to coordinators or other folks who have traditionally managed these types of behavioral situations in the past, or will they still function in the primary manner, and then this some sort of filter would only be triggered to a committee by virtue of the respondent making some sort of formal complaint?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take this one. I think I understand what you're asking, but are you wanting to know what the reaction would be, like boots on the ground during the event, or is this only if the crafter, for example, asks for support in reviewing the decision?
Well, yeah. So it's not necessarily during the event or before or after. It could be at any point in time. If I'm tracking a behavior, I'm aware of a behavior that I believe is a violation of the guidelines to this point as the craft inventory coordinator, I am following through on some sort of disciplinary procedure with crafters up to the point of their removal. And so is that sort of just still that my role remains the same within this redefined policy, but there may be some more support or another route for, say, that crafter disagrees with my decision. How does it work then to is someone else going to sort of come into the situation? Do I need to inform anyone of my decision prior to making it, first of all? And if not, if I make a decision, how does that crafter who disagrees with me then find some kind of support for that disagreement in terms of additional review?
Yeah. So I'm absolutely willing to discuss this more with you offline, because this is a very specific question that I think we are happy to give you the time and attention you need. But I'll just say in general, that if you have been making these levels of decision and you're comfortable with that and you do not need more support, we are not trying to take your freedom to do your job away. If you need support in that during the event, I'm sure you already have a hierarchy of leaders and support who can help you, be they bums, other folks on your committee. And then after the fact, if you need help reinforcing your decision, I think reaching out to the support administrator, who will be the top link in this chain that we're proposing, would be a great idea to get support. On the other side of the same coin, though, the crafter who the decision is about also can reach out for support if they're wanting conflict resolution with you and the craft inventory committee. More detail on that. I think I'd like to take it offline just so we don't bog down the board meeting.
That's perfect. That answers my question entirely. I appreciate your response. My last comment is just quickly reading through this, the section that says violations of protocols, poor conduct, understandable quality of communication and demeanor. That seems a bit vague and subjective to the point of potential problems in terms of determining someone not fit to continue in whatever role they're in, based merely upon their poor quality of communication and demeanor. Just thought.
Okay, thank you. Shell Bell?
Hi. Hey. I'm just gonna pipe in and say thank you guys for, I think maybe you put like 3.5 years of work into this, and probably just a rough estimate of maybe, 1,000 hours or something like that. And I like that you left a lot of room, and there's a lot of space here to give our staff space and grace to really kind of fine tune and customize for people like how this goes. And there's it sounds like there's a lot of room to maneuver and improve, and that it's not strict and not. This sounds like growth, and it sounds like a growing process. And I believe there's no nefarious intent, and I'm not paranoid, and I'm not afraid, and I trust you guys, and I trust us, and I trust the process. And thank you for working this hard and coming back and being collaborative and involving everyone in the process the way that you guys have. It's not gone unnoticed, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't have any more member input up. Last call. We're going to go to board discussion. Any board discussion, please raise your hand. Thomas.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Shell Bell just said, and just a heartfelt thanks. I know how much effort and I know there were some roadblocks along the way, and I just really appreciate you staying with it, and I think it's really important. And I just Herculean effort, and I just really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I also want to thank everybody for putting in the hard work in this, and I urge my fellow board members to support this. When I look at the types of kind of non-specific EDI complaints we have at the fair, one of the biggest, it seems like a big source of them, is that when somebody has an issue, they have no way to actually get it resolved. And our old grievance process hasn't really worked well for this. And I'd really like to have something that works for people at this year's fair, so that we can actually resolve issues instead of letting them fester. That's it.
Thank you. And John Alexander.
Yeah, well, Tom kind of stole my thunder by echoing Shell Bell, but he normally does that. Also, I want to thank you all. I got a bunch of input, and I shared input at the last hour, and I'm really not into doing that. And you all did a great job of addressing some of those questions in your presentation. I appreciated what you all did last year, and I appreciate you all sticking with it. And it's been clear to me since I got in this position that we need something different. So thank you.
Thank you. Arna.
Everybody has already said pretty much what I want to say. It was a great presentation. You guys have done a great job, so I'm not going to go on and on, but just a big thank you from me for the work that you've done.
Thank you. AJ.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge that over the last 3.5 years that I have been on the board, I have witnessed the hard work. I have asked several times for you guys to go back to the drawing board and question some things. And you guys always came back to the table with something different and with something more productive. And I appreciate all the effort and that you volunteer your time to take the heat for such an important piece of, I guess, policy that is going to really relieve some of the stress that's been on our organization for a long time. As someone who has been involved in a grievance, I would say I paid really close attention to what you guys have presented here in this last edition here, and I am grateful and I feel respected and heard by what you presented here. Thank you so much for your effort. I can't say that enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, AJ. And Kevin.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you all for your hard work and dedication as well. I think really the perseverance and, you never gave up, that really showed your dedication to this, and that really helps me know that we've got the right folks doing this. So thank you for sure, just like everybody else is saying. Really appreciate all your hard work, and I'm glad that you have a working document that you can really put fine details in and that can be flexible and work around to really find the best way to make things happen for folks. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Paxton.
Over the years I've been off and on the board, I think I've sat through 4 grievance rewrites of the grievance policies. And the only one I've seen actually work, I think, was the second one under Charlie Roth. I really appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I still have some questions. I'd love to have another workshop on it, but I really, really appreciate I have some concerns about being able to be abused. So, but I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it, and I'd love to actually see another workshop to talk more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandra.
Yes, I wanted to thank you guys. We've really needed a new way to deal with some of our interpersonal and other issues for quite a while. And you guys have been focused and attentive to detail and fairness in the way that you've come through with this policy. I think over time, a policy like this can help us even out some of the discord that we've experienced as an organization. And so this is a huge piece of how we bring ourselves back together. And it's been a huge job, and we greatly appreciate it. So thank you guys.
Thank you. And Teresa.
Yeah, I wanted to comment that one of the things I'm excited about is this collaboration happening with different groups and the potential for gathering better data about what kinds of conflicts that are coming up. And also even to address Paxton's concern about abuse, it sounds like this is a lot less susceptible to abuse than the current system. And so I'm excited about moving forward. And if those kinds of things happen, then we address them at that point. But we've needed this for a long time, and I'm really appreciative as well.
Thank you very much. I believe, are there any other board members who wish to speak? Last call. No one has spoke in opposition to the motion. Is there any objection to the adoption of this motion? Last call.
Steve,
Yeah?
it's Sue. I'm going to abstain.
You're going to abstain?
Yes.
Okay, and you don't wish to comment. Last call then. Is there anyone else who has any objection or abstention from the adoption of this motion? Hearing none, the motion is adopted with one abstention from Sue Theolis. And we will move on to the next agenda item, amending the bylaws. And Arna, would you like to take that? You're muted. You're muted.
Okay, bear with me. I have to get the motion in front of me. The board moves to amend the bylaws by adding that the president and vice president or presidents must be duly elected board directors.
I'll second it.
Moved by Arna Shaw and seconded by Sandra. Is there any member input on this motion? If there is any member input, please raise your hand in chat. Time for member input on this bylaw amendment. Lawrence Taylor, I believe you have a minute left. Is that right, Kirsten?
I won't take a whole minute. I want to speak in support of this motion, but I think it only goes halfway to what we ought to be doing in respect to defining our officers. And I think it is at least equally important that our treasurer and secretaries not be board members. And I would urge the board to consider either at this time or at some later time completing the cycle there.
Thank you. Last call for member input. Is there any other member input on this motion? Last call for member input. We'll go to board discussion. Is there any board discussion on this motion? If so, raise your hand in chat. Don't feel obligated. Paxton, or wait a minute, Sandra.
Can Arna and I make statements for this motion to start it off?
Sure.
Okay, Arna, did you want to?
You can go first, Sandra, if you want.
Okay. I think that the elected members of the organization should be accountable to the membership, and that's through the process of the elections that we have every year. And I think that it's important that these positions are filled for people who've been vetted by and elected by the membership. So I think I think it's really important that they be members who have been elected to the board. So I hope you vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think these two positions are important that they are elected by the members because they represent the fair to the public, especially the president. And to have someone represent the fair to the public who has not been elected by the membership doesn't feel right to me. It just, we should have someone that the membership has approved and endorsed represent us to the public. I understand LT's comments, and I didn't include what he's saying, but I do believe that the treasurer and the secretary have different skill sets that may not be on the board. And those positions, I think, need to continue on. We do best when we have a treasurer that is continuous, not changing with every board, and the same with a secretary. And so I would not want them to be elected board members because I wouldn't want that rotation. But I did not add that into this motion. And the board, as LT says, the board can discuss that at a later time, or if somebody wants to amend the motion. But I feel pretty strongly that the president and vice president should be elected board members. We have had situations where people get appointed to positions when they weren't elected, and I just don't feel like that's right. So I do hope that you guys will support this motion because I do feel it's important for our organization. Oh, I also wanted to say that I know the bylaws committee is incredibly busy right now working on these other bylaw changes for elections. But they don't have to deal with this, right now. They can, when, the election stuff is approved and finished, then they can, work up the wording for this and bring it back to us. I'm not sure this is the, best wording for this. I'm happy to have it go to the bylaws committee and let them wordsmith it if they want and come back to us, as long as the intent stays the same. And, it doesn't have to be done this week, this month, or, it just needs to get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Paxton.
And I'm probably going to vote against it because I really think that it's closing off an option that we really should keep open. So yeah, I've categorically been in favor of or against restricting it to just board members. The board members themselves are elected by the membership, and they're the ones who end up picking the officers. So I dislike closing off the options to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Paxton. John Alexander.
Yeah, Arna, I think you clarified a question. I wasn't sure what LT was saying, but I think you made that clear. This is one of those things that here we're talking about it and we're about to vote on it, and I'm not fully. We've had some conversations, but not a lot of conversations about that, and there hadn't been a lot of input. And there wasn't a lot of input, so maybe it's not that important, or it is important, but everybody's on the same page. When I first heard about this, I thought, yeah, but then I started to think about what are some of the reasons why we'd want to do it the other way. And started wondering about, right now to pass something, we need more than a majority of the board. And certainly to elect an officer that wasn't on the board, I would think we would need some sort of more of a super majority. But with our current definition of what it takes to pass something, I think we should consider what some serious decisions that need to be made that might need a super majority or whatever you talk about. And this certainly would be one of those. I've also heard conversations about having the membership elect these among the board members that they elect. And then lastly, I haven't seen a clear definition of some of these positions or job descriptions of these positions. And there's been a lot of conversation and different perspectives on what these positions represent to the fair and what their roles are. And that hasn't been well defined. So those are just concerns I have, and this is just an example of a situation where we don't really get to discuss something often before public comment. I mean, before it's old business, and then I feel kind of like I'm put into a vote. I've certainly had plenty of time to ask people about it, and that's why I have questions about it. But those are just some thoughts I thought I'd throw out there about why this isn't as clean cut of a decision as I thought it might be. And I would ask us to please, let's write job descriptions for these positions so we stop talking about that.
Thank you. To the point of order that's being raised by Dyerkoff, this motion really needs to say what language specifically, where in the bylaws is this going? Do you have an article and section where you're adding this, Arna?
No, and if it's okay with Sandra, I could reword this motion to rephrase it to say that the board moves to refer to the bylaws committee to amend the bylaws by adding that the president and vice president must be duly elected board directors. That would allow the bylaws committee to work on that as it's appropriate. And I think that's a better thing to do, to let the bylaws committee do that. There are bylaws experts. I am not. So with Sandra's approval as the second, I would like to reword that motion.
Is there any objection? Let's just take that as, is there any objection to changing the motion to referring it to the bylaws committee from the board? Does anyone have an objection? Hearing none, the motion is so amended. Okay, so this is a motion to refer a directive to the bylaws committee to make the president and vice president duly elected board directors. Kevin Levy.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, this for me, I'm for this because for me, it's about the voting process itself. You know, we have this big democratic process. We have candidate forums and statements and things. Folks put a lot of effort in to talking to the membership, you know, for them to vote them in. And so it's tough if all of a sudden someone else gets voted in. So for me, it feels like it could leave it open to, you know, I can just get my friends in there, you know, just say, hey, just run. Don't even have to try. Doesn't matter. We'll just vote you in anyways. And so for something like that, I feel like it really kind of leaves us open for that. So I think it makes sense that it should be duly elected board members because the membership has spoken. And I think that's something we should lead with. And so thanks.
No one else is on the stack. Is there anyone else, any other board members want to speak to this motion? Last call. Last call. Okay, this is a bylaw change. We're going to go to a vote. Sandra,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Paxton,
No.
AJ,
Yes.
Lisa is absent, correct? Still? John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Sue,
No.
Thomas Horn,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
Teresa Vaughn,
Yes.
Arna,
Yes.
and Kevin Levy.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes with Paxton and Sue voting no, Lisa absent. And moving on to the next item of business, the motion to dissolve the Community Center Committee, John Steinhardt.
Yep. I move that we dissolve the Community Center Committee.
And Sandra, do you want to second that?
I second it.
Okay, moved by John Steinhardt, seconded by Sandra Bauer. Is there any member input? Hillary?
Thanks. I was on the community center committee from its start. The committee members agreed to go inactive after completing its assigned task, which was to investigate the building of a community center. By the time we completed that project, we had, thanks to Tom Landfear, some very good information about land use, about special use permits, and about the gray water requirements for building on our property. We also had a design that addressed the issues of size and location. I learned a lot about the potential shortcomings of having design work done with the membership organization. I think this is why we ended up with a design that was for a net zero building that would cost an estimated $7 million rather than a simple building with a good kitchen. Even if we had made the effort to alter the design to be closer to $2 or $3 million, at that point, the project had become so controversial that fundraising would have been impractical. The designers didn't accept including a cost criteria as a design parameter. That, in my view, was a fatal flaw. I'd like to acknowledge the big efforts made by Steve Gorham, Andy Strickland, Randy Turney, Tom Landfear, and Linda Gingrich in support of this project. Andy and I talked up a lodge as early as the 1990s, and that idea morphed into an upland kitchen with a dining area, which became a community center, that being the name that used by the local land use code to describe a kitchen with a meeting space. The dream started as a permanent kitchen and an indoor space that could be used for meetings year-round. Simple, straightforward. There was a lot of back and forth about how many other features that building should have, and as we acquired other buildings, the pressure was relieved from this project as needing to meet or solve all of our needs for meeting space and other indoor uses. We still do not have a permitted kitchen that can be left in place year round. I still think our organization could have afforded a $2 to $3 million project, and there would have been savings and great community benefit. Sunsetting this committee is fine with me, but I encourage folks to keep the idea alive and look for the right moment to try it again. We could make good use of it. Thank you. Thank
you very much, Hillary. John Steinhardt?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is just a housekeeping measure. I really appreciate the work that was done on this committee, but it's pretty much done at this point. And this doesn't mean that if we have a need in the future, we can't appoint a new committee. But I really don't think we need to keep committees that are no longer operating on our books because somebody has to maintain their websites. We need liaisons, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, if we ever decide to go this way again, I'd certainly be in favor of creating a new committee. So thanks to people that did the work on this.
Thank you, John. And Paxton.
As one who's been involved in the community center project for a long time, I think it was really a valuable project that was worked on by a large amount of Fair Family. I mean, we went through several group meetings over the years to define size and requirements for what we needed for our work. And we did, you know, we got to a point of filing a plan with the county to start the process of developing a building. I have to agree with Hillary. I think we, without adding financial requirements to, we ended up with pie in the sky designs, where I also think we could have done an upland kitchen and a 200-person meeting room, which is what the family recommended needing. And anyway, we're in that $2 and $3 million range. I still think we ought to think about what we're going to do that way. The committee itself did not disband. The committee took a leave of absence, not leave of absence, was waiting on further recommendation by the board. This is a further recommendation by the board I'm not particularly happy with. And I do have a question for Hillary. I probably am going to vote against it because I really think the committee needs to be continued. And there's a lot of information that was developed during that process that we need to complete in the record. There's quite a few dedicated funds to building the community center that we had done over the years. How does disbanding this affect those dedicated funds? Do they have to be returned to the
Can I speak to that?
Yes, that's a question for you.
Well, let's hold on a sec. So Hillary, if you want to respond to that, and then before we get a board member raised their hand and I want to make sure also that there's no other member input. But realistically, go ahead, Hillary, if you can try and keep it short.
Yeah, there's about $45,000 that members donated for a community center. It does not have to be returned at this point. It still cannot be spent on anything other than a community center without donor permission. And it's a small number of donors. It's about 6 donors. We know who they are. And if they gave permission for it to be spent on something else, it could. Otherwise, we'll hold on to it indefinitely until it can be spent on that.
Thank you. Last call for member input. Is there any other member input before we move back to board discussion? Okay, seeing none, go to Sandra. I believe, John, do you have a point of order or is it satisfied?
Well, I would just like to keep us on the topic of this motion. The history of the Community Center Committee is interesting, but that's not what this motion is about. Thanks.
Understood. Most of this, however, does have bearing, including where the money goes. Sandra.
Yeah, I was also on the community center committee for a part of that time, and it had become a very complicated thing because you couldn't just have a kitchen. You had to also have a community center, which had a whole nother set of requirements in order to qualify for that designation with the county. And it really wasn't a good fit for what we needed. And so it kind of got to a stalemate of not being able to move forward. Plus the pricing of it had spiraled completely out of control. I think the last iteration was more in the $8 to $9 million range, which would have broken us during COVID if we had been able to go forward with that. And I do agree that this committee hasn't been active for several years now. And I think that doing the housekeeping is important. It's not to say that it can't, some committee with a specific task in mind can't be started again in the future when we get a better view of where we're going. And in the meantime, in fixed assets, we are talking about about having some kitchen alternatives, because that is really important to the organization, that we solve the kitchen problem. So it's not like it isn't, there aren't conversations being, we are working with different people to try to solve that. But this committee, I don't think is the one to do that at this point. They were trying to look into the community center project. So I think we should get used to doing these kind of housekeeping things periodically, so we don't have a bunch of committees that are not really active, and they don't have an appropriate charter at this point either. So I hope we are able to start doing those kind of housekeeping things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I don't have anyone else on the stack. Last call for board discussion on this motion. Okay, there has been some dissent, so we're going to do a voice vote on the motion. My current voting sheet. So, Kevin, we're voting on the dissolution of the Community Center Committee.
Yes, thanks.
Arna,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
John Alexander,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Sue,
Abstain.
abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you. I can barely hear you. John Steinhardt,
Yes.
Lisa Parker is absent. AJ,
Yes.
Paxton,
No.
George,
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
Motion passes with Paxton voting no and Sue abstaining, and Lisa still absent. Going to the next motion, dissolve the Vision Action Committee. Sandra, you want to make this motion? You can just nod your head, so moved.
Yes. So moved. Yes.
Okay,
Second.
John? John, are you seconding?
Yes.
Okay, moved by Sandra Bauer and seconded by John Steinhardt, just trying to split up the glory. A motion to dissolve the Vision Action Committee. Is there any member input on the motion to dissolve the Vision Action Committee? Any members who wish to speak to this motion, please raise your hand in chat. Last call. Are there any members who wish to speak to the dissolution of the Vision Action Committee? Seeing none, we're going to move to board discussion. Oh, okay, board discussion. It's right timely. John.
Yeah, this is a similar housekeeping mission to the previous one. The Vision Action Committee finished its work a very long time ago. And while I think 5 years ago, they spent some time working on reviewing fair feedback, that is actually not the charge given to them by the board. I did try to reach out to the committee since I'm technically their liaison, and most of the email addresses bounced. Never heard from anybody. I did reach out to their chairperson. Didn't get a response to that either. By making this motion, I'm not trying to say that the fair shouldn't engage in this sort of work. But if we do, we need to think about what we're doing and form a new committee and give it a new charge. as opposed to going one is now what, an 18 or 20-year-old charge. So that's the reason for this. It's just housekeeping.
Thank you very much. And Paxton.
Well, I dislike abandoning our goals, and this is one of the things that was set up to do. We were supposed to review the goals every 5 years. We did a goals review in 2015, and COVID, the next one would have been right in the time of COVID time, and it kind of fell apart. At that time, Lily was real interested in taking over the Vision Action Committee and had visions of how to make it work. And I think this is one of those things that was interrupted by COVID, and we actually need to continue to do it. I would much rather see, revitalizing the committee and having another goals summit, because I felt the goals reviews were valuable. After the last goals summit, I noticed when we were doing board meetings, people were referring to the goals, that their motions fit, stuff like this. So it was really a valuable contribution to the fair, and I think that it needs to continue. I was on the committee. I was not asked. And I've had several other past committee members wondering what was happening with the committee. So I know there's interest in redoing it or continuing doing it. There's a lot of interest in continuing to work on the goals, I believe. And so I think that, instead of getting rid of the committee, we need to restart it to do another goals work session. That's kind of mandated by past motions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paxton. Sue.
Paxton just said everything I was going to say. Thanks, Paxton.
Thank you, Sue. John Steinhardt.
I did email you, Paxton, quite a while ago about this because you were on the list on the contact sheet, and I didn't get a response from you either. So I'm not saying this sort of work isn't important. I'm just saying that if and when we decide to actually do something about it, maybe we should form a new committee with a new charter and new membership to go do the work. I don't have a sentimental thing that says we can only create committees and never dissolve them. I think this committee did the work that it was asked to do, and it's been done for a long time. And we have a different board now, and if we want to form a new committee and ask them to do something else, Paxton, if you'd like to put together a motion to form a new committee to do some sort of work on these lines, I'd certainly consider it. But at the moment, this committee has not been around and its members haven't been responsive. So I think it's time to move on.
Thank you, John. I don't have anyone else on the stack. Last call for board discussion.
Yeah, sorry, I'm fumbling my hand.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Thank you very much. So this is again something that the discussion, our public discussion around this is happening the moment we're supposed to vote. And I continue to feel a little uninformed. I'm a little concerned what Paxton just said. I would like us to revisit the vision action goals. That's something that I think would be worth doing. And maybe if we did that, we could have this discussion further. But given the discussion and where it's gone, I have concerns about this one.
Thank you, John. I'm going to go to Sandra because she hasn't spoken on this motion, but I see you, Paxton. You're muted.
Well, I muted myself instead of unmuting myself. So I think it's been, what has it been, at least 9 years since this committee has done any work. That seems like a pretty good stretch of time. And that it is very possible that the people who were on the committee 9 years ago are no longer available for some reason or another, or have no interest. So I do think it's very reasonable to say that we will draft and charter a new committee and put a call out for new members and to address whatever question comes before it. I don't think we have to hold on to these committees in perpetuity just in case they want to do something every, 10 years. So I think it's pretty, reasonable to disband an inactive committee, and should we decide to go ahead, activate a new committee with new charges, ask for new people or the same people. I don't have anything to say about who was on it or not on it, but I think that that's good policy on our part. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go to Teresa, who hasn't spoken to this yet.
I appreciate John Alexander's point that it's complicated, and I'm feeling like I have questions. What is this the only method we have for disbanding committees? I'm just curious about that whole process, so I'm a little bit reticent on this one. I also think that leaving committees that haven't done anything for a long time as just sort of existing out there is not a good policy, and we do need a policy. So I am in favor of the motion, but I do really appreciate the point that John Alexander makes about process.
Thank you very much. And AJ.
Yeah, I just want to state, again, this committee has not met for a long time. I was actually the liaison when I first came on to the board to this committee with Lily, and we never met with this committee because there was nothing to do. It wasn't active. So I was assigned to be a liaison to the committee that wasn't functional and never met during the whole time I was the liaison. And so I do think if we're going to have committees, that they should be functional committees. I think there is a time frame for things, and to just keep, I agree that we can't just keep committees in perpetuity, like just going forever when they're not active. We have a board process of assigning liaisons to committees. There's 2 liaisons that we try to do, 2 liaisons to each committee. And when a liaison gets appointed to a committee that is no longer functioning, there's a sense of unfairness to other board members who have functioning committees that they have to attend and liaison to. So I do find that there's reason to dissolve inactive committees, and I support this motion.
Thank you, AJ. Paxton.
I would much rather just keep the committee rather than start a whole new process and form another committee. I know some of the members would be interested in continuing to serve on it. It really broke down when 4 years ago, kind of at the beginning of COVID and with the elections of that time. I don't think it was a fault of the committee. I think it was more a fault of the times. It's a value committee. A lot of people have contributed to it. I dislike getting rid of the history. I think it's silly to form a new committee to do the same thing. I would just much rather reactivate this committee and start another process of reviewing the goals, which has been required by a past board motion. Anyway, thank you very much.
John Steinhardt.
Yeah, I just want to express a concern here. I kind of touched on this at the beginning of the meeting. So this motion has been published since the last meeting. For board members, they all had it in hand 2 weeks ahead of time. So I really don't understand we've never seen this before. We have to delay things and not talk about it tonight because we haven't had a chance to look at it. It's been available to the board. It's been available to the members. Showing up at the 11th hour is really not a productive way to work. And I'd really encourage people to look at their board packets when they come out, and to have the members look at the website and look at the agenda and comment while there's time for discussion instead of at the very last second. And I want to say I have no disrespect for the committee or the people on it. The majority of the people still listed as committee members are board members. And I don't really think that the original charge of the committee is really valid at this point, and I would prefer to disband this one and form a new committee with much more modern goals. Times have changed. Thanks.
John Alexander.
Yeah, I think the point that I've been trying to make is that we have not, as a board, had a public discussion about this motion. It doesn't matter how long it's been in front of us. And if we're being asked to have a public discussion and then vote on it immediately afterward, I'm glad Arna thinks this is funny, then, you know, maybe you're laughing at something else, but I think that, you know, that's the concern that's the concern I'm expressing, is that some of these things we don't get to have public comment. We have public comment right before we're about to vote on them, and I'm not comfortable voting on them because I was under the understanding that every member of this committee had been reached out to, and it seems like that maybe they had been, but the ones that were closest to us weren't reached out to hard enough. So I think that that I just want to clarify what I'm saying. It's not that I haven't read this motion, it's that we haven't had public conversation about this motion, and I'm no longer comfortable with it.
Thank you very much. I do not have anyone else on the stack. It's the last call for board discussion. AJ, and time check, we got about 20 minutes left. Go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, all right. So I'm concerned about that last comment. I'm concerned that we do not always have public conversations on every motion that comes to the board. And if we're going to start a process of having to have public conversations before we make a decision, I think that is it's a different process. I agree with Mr. Steinhardt in that this has been on our agenda for a while now, and I don't see any difference between this one and the last one that we passed, except for the fact that there's been a longer period of time that this committee has not met.
Thank you. Again, last call for board discussion. Last call. Hearing none, we'll go to a vote, and we'll start with Thomas Horn.
Yes.
John Alexander.
No.
Teresa.
Yes.
Arna.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Paxton.
No.
AJ.
Yes.
John Steinhardt.
Yes.
And Sue.
No.
Okay, so the motion passes with one absent, and Paxton, Sue, and John Alexander voting no. Confirm. And that concludes the agenda of old business. We're moving on to new business. There is a revised Create an Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Task Force to come up next month that will be sponsored by John Steinhardt, Teresa Vaughn, Sandra Bauer, Arna Shaw, and AJ. There's also a motion for board liaison committee attendance by Arna Shaw and Sandra Bauer. And now we'll go to meeting evaluation. John Alexander.
Yeah, I want to clarify something. I've been requesting a process change since I first was elected to the board, or at least for us to discuss and consider one. We had a small discussion about it. From my experience and research, I understand that the Fair family favors consensus on issues of significant importance. And if this is true, I think member input is an important part of our process, and board discussion in front of the public is an important part of our process. But I think the process that we're using now limits that. And in most cases, member comment and public board discussion is not scheduled until motions are part of the old business, right before we're expected to vote. And this limits our ability to respond to only two ways, either by changing our vote or by asking to postpone the vote. It does not give us a chance to respond to member input. It does not give us a chance to incorporate alternative perspectives from our members and based on our board of director discussions for crafting better motions. I think we can craft better written motions that don't leave us with issues of interpretation. And when possible, that better account for different perspectives through a process of consensus or at least near consensus. And one way of doing this could be to moving public comment and public board discussion relating to motions from old business to new business on our regular board meeting agendas. Thank you very much. And I want to thank Fair Cares, and I appreciate everybody and all they do for the fair. But I really have been pushing for this idea, and I want to get it in the record. I will send that comment to the recording secretary.
Thank you, John. John Steinhardt. You're muted. You're muted and blurry.
Sorry, I can't help the blurry part. It's late in the evening. Yeah, I'm trying to operate on the rules that we currently have. I think, we do operate by consensus. That's why it's a 2/3 vote. Most of the motions that we're dealing with, barring the last two, which are really short, are pretty complicated and technical. And we do have workshops. We do call out for member input. Having been involved in the EDIB motion, it took a lot of work with a lot of input, and it wasn't something I was ever going to do live at a meeting. And doing it offline by email and phone call, I think is much more productive for us. The fair moves amazingly slow compared to other organizations that I've been involved in. And I really don't want to slow it down. We have it's kind of just like our fixed assets thing. We have a lot of pent up work that needs to get caught up on. And so I think the way we're doing it is fine. But as I said, I really encourage members to read the motions in advance and give feedback, because there's plenty of time for dialogue and to take people's, comments under consideration when it's not in a 2-hour board meeting. So thanks.
Thank you. Teresa.
Overall, I really appreciated everyone's efficiency and getting to the point, and I didn't feel like we had a lot of rewriting, which was nice. I still do agree with John Alexander that the system it's not very comfortable to me either. As someone who doesn't have as long of a history on the board, I am constantly feeling like I don't know enough about this. And then I think, okay, I've got it down. I've read it. I've seen the emails. And then somebody brings up a whole new point in discussion, a member or something. And so I'm not saying I want to go to a deep discussion as new business, but I would at least like to hear from some reasons for the proposal when it's made as new business, and also maybe a chance for a little bit of, just the pros and cons or something. Anyway, I agree with John Alexander here.
Adam.
Yes, thanks to everybody. Although it may be debatable, 2/3 vote does not equal consensus in terms of my perception of what consensus means. I do think that, rather than it being within a board meeting, there could be some board listening sessions where the board promotes the meetings as fervently as the board meetings themselves are promoted, and invites the FAIR community to join in those listening sessions and provide their feedback in this format. We're missing a lot of the face-to-face interaction and the general conversational things that we used to have when we spent more time together. And I think a lot of people would potentially be available for that sort of an interaction, who may not be motivated to, read motions that are put out even a month in advance and try to sort through them without being able to have that back and forth interaction. So I do support the idea of finding creative ways to get the general fair member input to the board prior to voting on these decisions.
Thank you, Adam. And we'll go to Arna.
Well, I do support that as new business is, given when we talk about the new business, that the presenters of the new business, can have 5 minutes or 10, to talk about what the new business is and give the reasons for the motion as time allows in our meetings. Sometimes our meetings run really long, and that's not, we don't have the time. But as time permits, such as in a meeting like tonight where we are leaving early, we certainly could have that kind of time. I don't think that we have the time in board meetings to have full discussions of new business and old business, unless we're going to start to have 2 meetings a month. Because I don't think we're going to get through everything if we do it, full discussions of new business and then full discussions of old business. Now, if the board decides they want to do 2 meetings a month, we could do that. But I'm not sure the board wants to do that because we all have a ton of committee meetings too. So I don't know if that's workable for people on the board. But I see no reason, to not have a 5-minute discussion of each new business so that we can present it, and maybe the board doesn't need to discuss it as new business. Let the members discuss it, give them the time. We don't need that time. And then, but membership also has to take the responsibility to look on the .NET site and see what the motions are. And they also can look at that site, like they could look at the site and see what the new motions were that we were going to have tonight so that they can ask us questions about it and, be informed. It's, they don't have to have their hands held all the time on this. It's always there, it's there on the .NET site, and they can take responsibility for looking at that stuff. But I am all in favor of letting the membership have more say. But there are time constraints on this stuff. And so I'll shut up so I don't take so much more time.
Thank you. And I want to say really quick, we did discuss and try to, at one point, have some discussion about these things to those people who wanted to stay to close the meeting and not make it a formal part of the meeting, but still be able to have these discussions, new business. And we haven't gotten there in part because it hasn't become an agreed upon part of process that I'm still hoping we'll end up working on at some point with the board. And with that, I'll go to the next person on meeting evaluation. That's Erin Kenton.
Hi. So it's always been a problem trying to find time for everyone to speak. I understand the difficulties. A few years ago, we passed a motion where we set up time at the end of the board meeting for the board to be able to interact with membership, where membership could ask questions, board could respond. It was sort of if there's time, but the idea was 10 to 15 minutes at the end of every board meeting, kind of like a meeting evaluation. I know there's not always time. I love the idea of a conversation when new business is placed as well. That at one time you were allowed to spend more time talking about your new business, and then that kind of disappeared. So I think maybe a combination of between when new business is placed and maybe resurrecting the conversation period in the last few minutes of the meeting might help. Thank you.
Thank you. So Paxton.
I really enjoyed our board work sessions, or as Lily called them, listening sessions, when she was doing them. Those are, an alternate Mondays, and I would love to see us get back to doing that on a more regular basis. We're trying to do it now. I continue to see us working on doing that, but I would like to see more of them where we can communicate with the membership. And the other question that brought up, dawned on me, is we have another standing motion on trying to do hybrid meetings where we can get together in person. And I'd love to get a report on what progress has been done on that, or where we're at trying to get to doing meetings in person. Look forward to that in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're down to 6 minutes now. I don't have anyone else in the stack. Last call for meeting evaluation. John Steinhardt.
I'd be happy to talk about new business for the next 5 minutes.
We do have a president's piece tonight as well.
Okay, so yeah, there may not
4
be.
minutes.
AJ, do we move on or what?
Let's move on for tonight.
Okay. So the next board meeting is Monday, May 6, 2024 at 7 p.m. via Zoom, and the president's piece.
All right. Thank you all for being here tonight. I typically don't spend significant time in this really going into detail, but I will tonight for a few minutes. I want to say when I started on this board, you know, I had all of these hopes and dreams of being able to use my talents to better this organization in many different ways. I soon found out that back then it was called DEI, now EDIB, was a significant issue within our organization and something that really needed a lot of attention. And so over the past couple years, I have been really engaged in not only trying to move the board forward in our education around issues surrounding DEI and EDIB, but also really addressing what I find are some spots that we were missing within our organization and really becoming the anti-racist organization that the board expressed it wanted to be when I first came onto the board. So as your president, one of the things that I have really spent a lot of time doing is really trying to figure out how the board itself can take charge of really educating ourselves and also providing education for the membership. I think I want to thank operations. I want to thank our executive director for really taking lead on really starting the process of educating our membership on issues around DEI and holding workshops and things like that. But I think now is the time for the board to educate itself. And so with that said, I want to announce to you all that the board has secured a series of trainings, EDIB trainings that we will have this year. And the first one will be on May 15th. And it is my hope that we can educate ourselves in the way that we can be more useful to the organization in the conversation about inclusion and justice and equity. And I think it's important that the membership know that that we are making efforts in that way as a group. I ask for your patience and understanding, but also I thank you for pushing us and pressing us to do this education piece. This is something that has been a part of my life for the last 20, 25 years. But I think as a group, as an organization, as leaders of this organization, it is important that we hear the same information and that we make group decisions based on that information. And I think these series of trainings will give us an opportunity to do that exact thing. So with that said, I look forward to being able to communicate with you and the board being able to communicate with you our experiences around what we've learned. And hopefully I look forward to a day where you can see the board as a whole moving forward in this area with education under our belts. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you, Fair Cares. Thank you to the staff. We're in April. It's time to get ready. It's time to start packing your things and making plans and all those things to get ready for our event. I hope you are as excited as I am. I think the weather is going to be beautiful, and I look forward to seeing all you guys soon. Thanks. Good night.
Thank you very much. And with that, at 9 p.m., the April 1st, 2024 meeting of the Oregon Country Fair Board of Directors will come to a close.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good
buddy.
night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Have a
Good
good
control on that
evening.
bell, Stephen. Good wrist action.
Night, everybody.